Mr. McCrary, we've just heard an outstanding presentation from you on the field of electronic attack and the changing environment, as you put it, for the strike fighter community moving forward. Can you just recap for us sort of the key points you made there?
Certainly. As a brief overview on the capability of the A-18G Growler aircraft, which is a derivative of the in-service F-18, the two-seat model of that, which enables us to have somebody in the back seat to operate the equipment, if you will, for that new mission area there that's highly complex. So what we did was take that very sound airframe there with its advanced avionics, including an AESA radar, bring the equipment on board from the predecessor aircraft, which was the Prowler aircraft, and integrate it such that we were able to take a four-man operation and do it with two more effectively.
And why is ECM becoming a bigger priority, perhaps, for the future forces?
Yes, as the threat has developed, it's become much more broadband in the electromagnetic spectrum. And that's really what we're doing here, is trying to operate effectively in the electromagnetic spectrum, which heretofore hasn't really been as widely considered. But as the threat have become more sophisticated, what we found is that traditional methods for countering that, the onboard systems that we have for individual aircraft protection, and even now the new stealth developments, which are really narrowly focused on high-end radar signals, are now no longer adequate to protect the fleet. So the threat has adapted to our advances, both electronically and, of course, in stealth design. So what they've done is moved outside that band to be able to effectively target and potentially destroy those new aircraft. So the expansion of the range for the Growler, which means a greater electromagnetic spectrum, the ability to control that, means that we can protect those assets. And with the Super, of course, we're able to fly at the same speeds and altitudes as the Strike Force does, which means that we're embedded and enables us to go with them, see that threat that's going to begin to come up against the strike package, defeat it, either electromagnetically or kinetically, because we do carry, of course, the most advanced weaponry for that as well. So in total then, we protect the entire flight strike package, if you will, because we have a much broader band coverage, more powerful systems, and do things that you couldn't do on your own aircraft.
And as you said, if there aren't enough of these assets available, it has a sort of a domino effect all the way through to the land operations. Is that right?
It does. It does. So currently, U.S. policy is that no strike package goes forward without electromagnetic protection package. So as that demand becomes greater, because we service not just our U.S. Navy customer at sea, but also the U.S. and Allied Air Forces doing expeditionary activity around the world. As those operations become more diverse and greater and many more locations, what we find is that the original size of the procurement may not be adequate to provide that level of protection. So U.S. government is indeed adding additional Growlers, both for additional leverage on the aircraft carrier to more fully utilize the assets that are out there, but also to then protect our both the U.S. Air Force, Marine Corps, and of course our allied partners who are operating in coalition with us.
And could you provide us, in a nutshell, perhaps just one or two of the main advances that we're seeing in the advanced Growler?
Yes. So as I said, while initially we took the equipment from the predecessor aircraft and modernized it, there is now a development of a brand new system, the next generation jammer, that will employ the technologies that have come to bear with, like the AESA radar, for example. Much more flexible, much more able to address a wide variety of threats and change in flight, so it can adapt to the threat. Because modern threats now have frequency, agility, and things like that mean you can't really pre-plan against what you might see. You have to have a system that has the agility to adapt to that wherever and whatever it might be. So that's why we have onboard operators who can not only monitor that system, but also monitor communications and other things that might say that there's a potential for a different threat coming up. So all of those capabilities make it truly the world's first cyber fighter. So it doesn't just jam signals and defeat those attack systems. It also monitors battlefield emissions and enables us to have a much better situational awareness that we can share then with the rest of the strike package.
You've been speaking, of course, to a multinational audience. Can I ask how that's important to Boeing and its business interests?
Yes, well, again, the protection of these assets, of all of the strike packages that are coalition-oriented. So in other words, anybody who is working with the U.S. or U.S.-supported activity, Libya, for example, where the U.S. didn't provide strike assets, we did bring growlers because that was part of our guarantee of safety for other packages that don't have that. It's quite a sophisticated and expensive operation, and so you just don't see this capability in any other Air Force, and indeed not even in the U.S. Air Force. So the U.S. Navy is the single provider for U.S., and just as big tankers are provided for us by the U.S. Air Force. So it really is just a shared asset, and we share with our allies, of course, to make sure that they're protected as well.
And just on a final note, can I ask your overall thoughts on the conference over the past couple of days?
Yes, so this is actually my 5th conference to attend. I really like this event, and the reason I keep coming back, of course, is the broad nature of it, the fact that we get to interface with so many different air forces from around the world, the shared activity. Clearly, as a business development person, it helps me have a better understanding of what the emerging needs are and where we might shape activities. But of course, I am a retired Air Force pilot, so I have a lot of interest anyway in aviation and military aviation. So it's a great thing. Of course, we touch many of the same people, but meet new people every time. And then, of course, as I perhaps move around the world, I have a great touch point. So I find this to be a very good place to really expand the network.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you back, and we hope to see you next year.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.